Alright, so welcome to a new guide on this channel, and on this occasion is DIGITONE from Elektron. This is not a review, it's a complete deep dive guide about this device. If you like this, please like and subscribe, and if you have the money and you want to buy me a coffee, you can. Check the links at the description. Now, this device is quite massive. The way I planned this video is so you can watch it as if it was a course. We will start from the basics and then keep learning more and more on each section. So everything is in chapters. If you look at the description or the timeline, you can jump to a new section or skip it. Now still, since this device is way too big to cover in one single video, I've recorded some other videos to cover very specific topics. You can find these videos in the cards at the top or the links at the description of this video. Okay, so let's begin. Let's first learn how to use the patterns and the banks, and then we will go and talk about the data structure. Now, as soon as you turn it on, you will be standing in a pattern, and if you press play, it's going to be, playing something. It's the active pattern. So, what you get is 8 banks and 16 patterns per bank. If you hold the pattern button, it will light up all the 16 buttons. This means that you can select one of the 16 patterns that you have available. If I go to the number 2 and play it back, I can select a different pattern, and same motion, pattern number 3, and play it back is the pattern number 3 of whatever bank. Still, the 16 patterns belong to a bank. If you go to a bank, it will let you select one of the 8 different banks that you can select. And if I select the first bank, then it will ask you to select a pattern, and then we can play back. If I stop maybe and I go to maybe bank 2 and tap the number 2, I'm going to be playing the pattern number 2 of the bank number 2. Now, when you're standing on a bank in a pattern, you have 4 different tracks that you can use. If you're standing on the 1, you can go to the 2, the 3, and the 4, and they hold different sounds. If I go to the number 1, on this pattern, I get this sound, but if I change to the track number 2, we have a completely different sound. Now, each of the tracks can have their own sequence data, they can have their own scale, and a lot more things. Also, by pressing the MIDI option, the MIDI button that you get right here, it's going to take you to a different place. So what you get is 4 different tracks with the synth engine of the synthesizer, but you can use 4 MIDI tracks. And this is so you can connect this device to your computer or maybe some other, devices like other synthesizers, maybe from Elektron or maybe just a different synthesizer, and use the sequencer as a command center. All right, so let's talk about projects. The storage of this device calls plus drive. Now, this holds pretty much everything: sounds, projects, patterns, and so on. And the keyword right here is projects. So when you work with this unit, you just don't have 8 banks and 16 patterns each. The banks and the patterns, they belong to a project. So when you turn on the device from factory, you are going to be standing, usually by default, on the presets project. And that's why when you turn it on, if you play something, you're going to be getting some data by default, right? And this is because you're standing on the main project. How can you see the projects? So if you go to the settings, this button right here is going to take you to the project menu. And you can have a lot of options like project, songs. We're going to talk about this much later. But if I go to project right here, it's going to ask you load the project, save as, or manage projects. So if I go to load project, you can see that we are standing on the 001 that says presets, and that one has a tiny little icon. This means that this is the default, project, and then you cannot change it because it's the one from factory. That's the one that you get by default. But if you so desire, you can maybe create a new one. Now remember that every time that we go to the presets project, if I go to bank number 1 and preset and pattern number 1, when I play it, it doesn't matter where I go, I'm going to be getting something else, right? I always get some kind of sequence data. What happens if I start a new project? I'm going to go to settings, then I'm going to say projects, and I'm going to go to load a project, and I'm going to create a new. So I'm going to say yes, and then it's going to ask you, do you want to save your changes? I'm going to say no in this case, and then I'm going to say yes. This is going to start a new project. It's going to take a little while. When it says success, you can do no, 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 and it's going to take you back to the main screen. Now, standing on a new project, when I do play, notice that nothing happens, and I'm loading the bank number A and the pattern number 1. And right here at the top, it tells you where you're standing. It says A1. If I change it to B and do 1, it's going to, tell you that you're standing on the bank number B and then the patch, the pattern number 1. I'm going to go back to the number 1, bank 1, and then pattern number 1. And notice that if I play it, I get nothing at all. All the sounds and the patterns that we had on the default project are gone. And this is because each project, when you start a new one, holds its own version of the 8 banks and 16 patterns each. So you can have up to 128 patterns in a project, and you can add up to 128 projects. Now, this is because each project holds its own version of the 8 banks and 16 patterns each. You can have up to 128 patterns in a project and up to 128 projects on this device. If you think about it, is a lot. With a single project, you could create a complete live performance with the 8 banks and the 16 patterns per bank. And then you just change projects. And remember, you have 128, and you can load a completely different version of the 8 banks and 16 patterns each. So yeah, it's just a very powerful stuff. You can create a lot of things and then just change projects, and you will be standing on a different universe. So in conclusion, you have 128 projects. Again, by going to settings, accessing projects, you can load projects and you can create a new one. And right here, if you go no, right here, it's going to say manage projects on the same, screen. And right here, when you go there, you can see that you have all the different projects. It's pretty blank for me. And you can load them up from here. So again, 8 banks, 16 patterns, you have 128 projects. You can use 4 different tracks per pattern. And then you have something that calls the sound pool. The sound pool is a place where we can quickly load different sounds. Now we're going to talk about the sound pool much later. Okay, so the keyboard right here is a little bit different from the Digitact or Syntact, but some things are just the same. On this one, since the vibe of this device is a synthesizer, not so much of a drum or, a groove machine, you get the white keys right here at the bottom, and right here at the top you get the black keys. Maybe because of the camera you cannot see the lighting, but I'm pretty sure that you can see it on your Digitone. So right here you have the black keys, and right here at the bottom you have the white keys. Now when you're playing something, maybe you're gonna go up just a tiny little bit. When you play something, you can do the up or the down arrow to change octaves. And right there at the top is going to tell you how much you're changing it. Now this is going to be per track. If I go all the way low, maybe not that low, on this track, I'm standing on the track number 1, and I go to the track number 2, notice I'm not standing on the low, but if I go back, it's going to remember the configuration of the keyboard when you change tracks. I'm going to go back to whatever we had from before, just in case. Now I'm going to stand on the track number 1. So right here in the left side, you have a button that says it's called the note button. So when you press it, it's going to take you to the keyboard configuration. And right here, you have a lot of functions. First of all, you have the fold, this one that you have right here. And if you notice right there at the bottom, it's going to give you the letter of the encoder that can handle that option. In this case, it's going to be the D. It's going to be keyboard fold. So if I turn this off, notice that the layout of this is changing, is using a fold type of layout. It's not the black keys at the top and the white keys at the bottom. It's going to start with the root note and then all the way up until we get to the next octave and then move forward. Now for now, I'm just going to turn it off. Right here, you have something called the root. If I play this key, C5 is going to be my root, but I can change it from here. Notice that as soon as I keep playing, it's just kind of offsetting the keyboard in this case, because it's selecting a different root. Now the root really matters when we talk about scales. I'm going to go back to the C5. Right now, we are standing on the chromatic scale. So the root is super important when we select a different scale. Maybe I'm going to go to Ionian, which is the next scale. And as you can see, it's going to change how the keyboard looks. Now it's all the white keys. And if I keep changing and selecting other scales, some of the lights on the keyboard are going to go off and on, just showing you the Dorian scale in this case. And notice that the grayed out buttons, they do nothing, right? Only the lighted up keys will play something because you're standing on the Dorian scale. Now, by changing the root, it's going to start, shifting the colors right here, indicating what you can play on the keyboard because that's, what belongs to the whatever root, whatever scale. In this case, I'm just going to go back to C. Now, you have a lot of scales. If I keep scrolling and scrolling, you can see that you have a lot. And some of these scales are really weird that maybe you're not going to use in your life. But, why not? Why not exploring? I'm going to go all the way back, and I'm going to be standing on the first one. Now, you have something that calls the chord, is the chord mode. Now, the chord could be off or could be on. So if I turn it on, now whatever I play right here is going to be a chord. And that chord is a chord that belongs to whatever scale and root that we are using. So it's it's pretty smart in that case. If I change the root, now it's going to be changing, the chords to something that belongs to that scale. I'm going to go back to C5. There's something else that you need to know. What if I don't want this? What if I want to pick or select whatever chord that I want to use? Now, if you go back to Crow, is the chromatic scale. Now, if I go to the chord mode, it's not going to be on or off anymore. It's going to be major, minor, and seventh, and so on, right? So we can select a chord right here. Now, I like it a little bit more when we are working with the scales, not so much with chromatic. But if you're standing on chromatic and still you want to use the chord, you can select it right here and use it. Now, also notice that when you play a key, it will tell you the chord tones, not just the position on the keyboard, but the chord tones. And that's something really important when you're working with this. Now, in this case, I'm going to go all the way to off. I don't want it. I'm going to stand on chromatic and C5, which is, it was the default. You have another thing that is called the transpose. Now, this one will transpose, as you could guess. Now, if I play this and keep playing and change the transpose, nothing happens. Right? So I'm transposing by 3. Nothing happens. So this option, it's really useful when you want to transpose a track or maybe transpose a sequence. But the thing is that when you change it, you need to confirm the changes. And if I keep playing and I do yes, then it's going to transpose. But still, this transpose is an offset. You're just offsetting from whatever you have as a root. So you can always go back and do confirm, and you're back to whatever is default. Okay, so just to finish this section, something important that you need to know is that each track remembers its own version of the keyboard. If you take a look right here, it says T1. It means that you're standing on the keyboard configuration of the track number 1. So if I funky this up, I do something like that, and then I go to the track number 2, we are back to default. And right here, again, we have the same default options that we had from before. And if again I transpose by something and say yes, and I go to the number 3, you're going to be standing on the default configuration of the track number 3. And it's super important because you can offset and change and experiment with the different tracks. And when you create a sequence, you could have or you could get really creative things. So the plan with the synthesizer, right, is always to make sounds of your own. But you have a lot of built-in sounds to choose from. You have a couple ways to access to them. So I'm standing on a clean patch, bank, and a clean project bank number 1, and then preset number 1. And if I play it, I get the dumb, sound, the default sound that you get on all the different default tracks. Now, by going to each track and then double tapping is going to take you to the sound browser. Now, with the level data with this knob, you can scroll through the different sounds that you have available, and you can even audition the different sounds as you scroll the list. You can also do it with the arrow buttons. It's maybe a little bit easier. Another thing that you can do, and maybe you notice, we go one by one. If you do function and you keep going with the arrows, it's going to jump by a lot. So if I keep going down and down and down and down, notice that you have a lot. And at some point, you're going to get to the final one, which is going to be 240 something. Keep going, and maybe you can see it now. It's going to go there. It's 256. You can see it right here at the bottom. But then if I keep going, I have more, and it says B instead of A. Maybe the camera is too small. So how it works right here, how the storage works, is that it's like the banks and the patterns. Now, if I go to bank like this and tap the number 9, notice that now this one is selected and not all of them are selected. If I go down, it's going to only let me go to 256. Is a little bit different now. If I do bank and then go to the second one, now it's just loading all the presets on the bank number 2. And again, it's 256. And if I go to the bank and then number 3, it's empty. Now you can have 8 different banks with 256. Now, why is this one is empty? It's because this bank, it's empty. When you create a sound, you can choose this bank and store whatever sound that you have right there. Now, one tiny little cool thing, I'm going to go to bank and then the number 1. I'm going to get out of this menu. And remember how we can access this by double tapping and then accessing, right? But we have a different way. You can do a function and then you can move the level data and you're going to be entering, the bank number A in this case. And remember right here, we can maybe go to the bank number 2 and then keep scrolling and auditioning sounds. Now, at some point, let's say that now notice that the bank B contains mostly percussive sounds. I'm going to select that one. So what happens if you want to load? Now, if I do no, it's going to exit this screen and it's going to go back to the default preset that you have on that track. How can I do to load it? You just do yes, and it's going to load that sound to the track so you can use it on your project. Now, that's it pretty much. Now, it's really cool. You have 8 banks, 256 sounds per bank. Now, still, you cannot argue, if I go to the bank number 1 in this case, you cannot argue that doing this or doing this, it's a little bit annoying. On top of that, you want to find something. Let's say that you want to load a bass sound. You're just trying to find something for a bass. So what are you going to do? You're going to be playing and scrolling all this until you find something that sounds like a bass? Maybe, that is just maybe not that real. Or maybe not that useful. So what you can do, you can press the left arrow. If you go right there to left, you have a bunch of options. You have the view pull. We're going to talk about the pull later. And then you have the sort ABC, the filter, and the search. So sort ABC is going to sort it by name. So if that's your thing, you can do it by like that. But then you have the all useful filter. If I go to filter, it's going to let you select by tag. And yes, you can save sounds and tag them. But let's say I want to search only for basses, right? Or maybe something like that, or brass. So yeah, you can just keep scrolling and maybe you're going to be selecting basses. I'm going to say yes. And now that one is ticked and it will only show right here the ones that sound like a bass. And maybe, if I go to filter and say yes, I can select the kick and bass. So this one has a tick, and if I go down, the bass has a tick, and it will only show you the ones that belong to the category kick and bass. Now, in this case, you only have one preset in the factory that has a kick and bass as tag. Now, if you want to remove the tags, you just need to go to filter. You can just untick it, or you can clear all the filters, right? And you're going to be getting back to everything, all the options, or you can search. Type the name of whatever it is that you want to find, and then it's going to find it, right? So this sound browser is like the easy place where we can get sounds. Like they go get a sound and then get back right here. What if we want to change the name? What if we want to delete it? What if we want to perform something, a little bit more hardcore? So we have another thing called the sound manager. So the sound browser is like the easy place to get sounds, and the sound manager is a completely different place. I'm going to go to settings. Inside settings, you need to go to sounds. I'm going to go down to sounds, go to sounds, and then you have a lot of options right here. The one where we need to go is going to be the sound manager. If I go to the sound manager, it's the same thing that we had before, but a little bit different. Still, you have your banks. If I go to bank number 9, you get it. If I go to the B, you get the B. And if I go to C, we have nothing. So you can store your presets right here on the ones where you have nothing. But if I stand on a pattern or maybe a sound that it's on the bank A, you can select them, you can change the tags, and you can do a lot of things. Now, still, if you think about this, the only difference is that we can see the name and we can see the tag, between the manager and the sound browser. Now, if I go to the left, we get the sort, the view pool, the sort ABC filter, and then search. So we get pretty much the same. Not really. If I go here and then to the main screen and then go to the right one more time, you will have a lot of options. You can select the sound, load it to the track, you can copy to, you can save, you can rename, edit the text, delete all. And now you need to be careful right here because some of the options are really destructive. What if I wanted to delete? Well, the only thing I need to do is I want to select some of the presets, and notice that you can select the multiple presets or sounds in this case. And then I can go right here and I can just delete them all. And all of this is just pretty destructive. If you delete them, you are going to be deleting them for good. So you need to be careful. But yeah, you can do a lot of options, select all, you can toggle, you can even send the sysax from here. So yeah, this is like the main manager of your sounds. All right, so if I go out, remember double tap the sound browser where you can select the sounds. If you do function, you can move and go to the same sound browser and then go into settings and then going to sounds. Inside sounds, you have the sound browser and you have the sound manager. Also notice that you can rename the track sound from this place, and you also have something that says clear track sound. If I play, notice that we get the clap that we selected at the beginning. What if I wanted to, on this track, go back to the default preset, to the default sound, the beginning? So, well, you need to go here and say clear track sound. I'm going to say yes, and then confirm. And when I play it, we get the default preset. Right, so we know about the keyboard, the patterns, the banks, the tracks, and how to access the different sounds. We are ready to do something a little bit more fun. To begin, I'm going to be going to settings and I'm going to be loading a fresh project so we can all, start from the same place. I'm going to load, I'm going to create new. I'm not going to save the one I'm using right now. I'm going to say, yes, this is going to initialize a new project. And then when it's done, I'm going to say no, 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 and get out and go back to the main screen. I'm going to stand on bank number 1 and then pattern number 1. And if I play something, it's going to give us, the default sound for each track. Now, if I do play, again, we have nothing. So what you can do, if you want to enable the metronome, you can go to function and then you can long press the pattern button. And notice that at the bottom, it says metronome. So I'm going to go to function and then I'm going to be long pressing. And notice it says metronome on right there at the top. And if you want to turn it off, you do the same thing, long press and then do pattern. And then it's going to turn it off. If you quickly tap it, it's going to let you go to the menu of the metronome, which is something that I don't want right now. Just going to get out. And then for now, I'm going to enable the metronome. I'm going to press and hold. Now, to record something, you need to press and hold the rec and then do play. And notice that the rec is blinking. So this means live recording. If the rec is steady, it means grid recording. And right now we can learn how to do a live recording, which is the easiest way. Now the sequencer starts going and we can hear the metronome at the back. So right now the only thing that we need to do is to start, playing some stuff and it's going to get recorded. Remember that this is a polyphonic type of synthesizer. We can record chords. Right. Now, maybe notice is a little bit off, just a little bit off. So if I go to stop, I'm going to stop pretty much everything. Now, if I go to rec and I keep pressing and then I go to play, notice at the top, it says live rec unquantized. So it means that when I record something, it's going to be unquantized. That's why it's a little bit off from the metronome. Now, if you do the same, press and hold, and you tap until you get quantized, when you record something, it's not going to be unquantized. It's going to be quantized. Now, to stop everything and go back to the beginning, I'm going to say something like this, and it's going to, stop the playback. The thing is that I want to record something again, but quantized. But I have something. How can I delete that something? So what you can do, you can go to function, hold, press and hold, and then you can go to play. And notice it says clear. So when you do something like this, it's going to clear the sequence. And I'm talking about the whole sequence. not just this track, is the whole sequence. So if I play something, we get nothing back. I'm going to stop it, and then I'm going to go here, and I'm going to tap it and make sure that I'm standing on the quantized and not the unquantized. And now we can record something, and we make sure that it's going to be quantized. When you're standing on live record, if you want to exit without stopping the playback, you can tap play, and it will exit the live record, but it will keep playing back. If you want to record again, you press and hold and you tap it, and it's gonna be blinking again. And then you just record something on top. Pretty cool. Alright. So I'm gonna double tap to stop everything. Tiny little things that you need to know. If you press rec without, holding and then doing play, you're going to be standing on grid recording. This is the next mode, and we're going to talk about this in a minute. For now, I'm just going to toggle this off and do play. So when we are playing back and I press play, it's not going to stop the playback of the sequence and go back to the beginning. It's going to stop it where it is, and when I do playback, it's going to resume the playback. Right? Is a little bit different. What happens if I want to stop it and then go back to the beginning? Well, in this case, you're going to need to go to the stop. It's going to reset the sequence back to step number 1, and then it's going to start from the beginning. Now, then you have the other mode. It's going to be grid recording, not live recording. Now, I have something. I don't want it. I'm going to be doing function, and I'm going to do clear, and it's going to sequence. Oh, it's going to clear the sequence. When we are stopped, I'm going to be doing rec. And when I go right here, what we can do, we can add the steps, by enabling the steps and using it as an old-fashioned type of sequencer. So if I do this, 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 and this, and then I do play, is only going to be playing the steps where I'm adding, the triggers. And this is how we call it on the Elektron universe. We are adding a trick right here. And maybe I could add it there and add it here. And we can do it, while we are, playing back. Now, remember, when you record something with grid recording or you do live recording, all of this happens within the scope of the track that you're using. I'm standing on the track number 1, right? The T1. What happens if I switch to the T2? I'm going to be going there, and we have a different version of the sequence. Now, in this case, I'm going to do something. We're going to talk about this later. I'm going to be going up on this. We're going to talk about this. Don't worry. And this, I'm going to be adding some other sounds. So this is a different version of the sequence for the T2, and then we have the T1. So we can switch between tracks and just, keep adding things to the sequence, just like this. All right, so I'm gonna double stop and double stop to stop it, and then I'm gonna get out of the rec mode. So we know that we have something on the track number 1, and we have something else on the track number 2, and we know that by doing function and holding it and then pressing play, we're going to be deleting whatever we have on the sequence. So this function and play, what it does is deletes the whole sequence for all the tracks. So if I do function play, it's going to clear everything. But maybe what I want to do, I want to delete, I don't know, maybe the track number 2, right? This one. And I want to keep the number 1. So with this one, you need to do rec on, right? I'm going to stand on the track number 2. I'm going to enable the rec. And if I do function and then clear, it's going to clear the number 2 and not the number 1. If I get out of this and do function and clear, it clears the whole sequence for the whole, all the different tracks. Okay, so we know that when we live record, we can record some chords, right? We know this. So the thing is that how are we going to be recording notes or editing notes or chords when we are standing on a different mode like the grid recording? Right here, I just can add a trick. It's going to be a single note, not a chord. So, okay, so we have 2 different methods to do this. We have the track note method, and then we have the quick note method. All right, so let's address the track note first. We need to be on some mode. In this case, is going to be grid recording. And what I want to do, I want to add a note right there. So if I add it, we get it, right? So it's fine. So how can we edit this to have a chord? So the track note, how it works, we need to press the trick, this one in this case, and then we need to press the note. This one is going to take you to this menu. So now it's going to give you the keyword right here. So what you need to do is you need to punch in the notes that will be part of that trigger. In this case, we have the C, but maybe I want this and I want this. And notice that right there at the top is showing you whatever it is that you're doing. But still, if we hear at the back, notice that we just get a single note. So whenever you do this, you enter the notes. Maybe I'm going to be doing 7th, whatever. I'm going to be going to yes. You need to confirm the changes. And right here on the right side, it tells you which notes you're adding. I'm going to be doing yes. And then we get the chord. Alright, so this is the track note, right? Now you can do it here, but maybe let's say that you want to do the same thing, maybe on 5 and then on 7. So you can maybe add the 2 tricks like this, then hold the, both at the same time or multiple at the same time. And then when you go right here, then you can, add the notes and say yes, and then play it back, and you're going to be getting it. Alright, so another tiny trick that has got nothing to do with the track note is that you can copy paste, and you don't need to do this if you want to reuse the chord, right? So right here at the bottom, remember it says copy, clear, and paste. So if you press and hold a trig, you can copy it, and it says copy one trick. So let's say that I want to paste it. I'm going to be going here, I'm going to be holding it, and then I'm going to be going to paste, and it says paste one trick. And if I play it back, we get it. And just by doing this, we can just keep pasting and get it. And you can copy whatever you want and paste whatever you want. Now what if you want to edit whatever it is that you did? Now, remember that the grid mode is the edit mode as well. It's not just grid. So let's say I want to edit the first one. I'm going to be going right here. I'm going to hold it, and I'm going to go right there to the notes. And it will let you know what you did, and it's going to let you know right here on the keyboard what you did. So if you want to edit, maybe I want to remove this, and I want to remove this, and I want to keep just 2 notes. Once I do so, I can go to yes, and there we go. And if I play it, it's just 2 notes. Alright, so I'm going to disable the grid mode. I'm going to go to function, do clear, and I'm going to be clearing the whole sequence. Now we need to talk about the other mode, is the quick note method. Now on this one, I need to zoom the camera a little bit because it's going to show up right here at the top. Now, what we want to do, again, we want to stand on the grid mode recording, and the grid recording, and then I'm going to be adding a trigger. Now, when you press and hold the trigger, instead of going to the note, what you can do, you can go to the up and down arrow. When you do something like this, notice a keyboard appears right here at the top. And you're still holding. You must not release this one, because when you release it, it's gone. So if I press and hold, and then you do up or down, it could be down as well. It's going to show you which note you're adding. So now what you can do is that you can move this arrow, and you're going to be changing the root note, the single notes that you have. And we can play this, while we are doing this. I'm going to be holding, I'm going to do up, and then I'm going to be changing it, and notice that we get something else. All right, so I'm going to be standing right here. So what if you want to add more notes, right? That's the trick. So you need to press yes. When you do so, it's going to let you know on the dot line right here, a dark line right here, black line, the previous note. And then the dashed one is going to be the next note. And you do the same thing. You just shift it with the up and down until you find the tone that you want. If that's the one you want, you're going to need to say yes, and it's going to be added. And then you keep moving forward until you add the next note. Now, once you're ready, if this is what you want, you just release, and there you go. You have it. Now, you can still edit it by going here and going to the note, and it's going to show you what you did. So I'm going to be exiting, and you can do hold it, press and hold, and you can go back right here to edit whatever it is that you did. Okay, so I'm going to be going again to the same mode. Now, if I enter again, it looks a little bit different, right? So the root note is going to be that one, and now it's not the last note that we added. So by doing up and down, what we do in this case, we're going to be shifting the whole chord. And this is something super useful. You can, fool around and just change whatever it is that you did. Now, what if I want to stand on the other tones with the left and the right? We just can move on to the next one and to the next one and so on and so on. All right. Okay, so one last thing. If I press and hold and go back to the same mode, while holding this and you hold the function, and I know it's a little bit funky, I'm going to do it like this. I'm going to tap this, hold the function, enter to this mode, and then if I keep holding the function, when I go up and down, it's going to shift it by an octave. You can go an octave up, and it says C5, in this case, C6, 7th, and maybe that's too loud, and so on and so on. So by holding function, you can go up and down by an octave. All right, so let me just stop it like this. I'm going to be adding some notes, just like that. And if I play it, you know, we get it. So if I stop it, let's say that you want to edit this sound, but you don't want to be playing it back. And this has got nothing to do with a quick note. It's something I forgot to tell you. So what if you want to audition whatever it is that you did right here? So by holding the Trig and play and pressing the yes, it lets you hear or audition whatever you have on that step or trick, right? You have that one right there, and that one right there, and right here we have, of course, the same thing. But by holding the Trig and tapping the yes, it's gonna audition that trick. Okay, so now we know how to live record, grid record, and the track note and the quick note. As we move forward through the different sections, I'm gonna give you tiny, tricks and functions. Now, on the Elektron world, you have 3 different types of recording. You have the live recording, the grid recording, and you have one more that is called step recording. But I will not dive into this. It's not the most popular in my opinion, and it's pretty easy to do, and it's like the most classic way of sequencing that you could get. Now you have a whole section in the manual right there. It's a pretty easy read. And if you're interested in this mode, hit the manual and you will find it right there. Now still, I believe that the live and the grid recording, with just knowing that, is just more than enough. Okay, so I'm going to clear the sequence, and if we play, we have nothing. We can hear the metronome at the back. So if I do function and quickly tap the pattern, we access to the metronome menu. So you can toggle off, from here, you can toggle it on. You have your time signature, depending on, of course, what you want to do. I'm going to keep it in 4/4. And then you have the volume. If you want to go up, it's going to be louder, or maybe it's going to be softer. Again, all of this is just pretty obvious. But you have one more option that is super useful, which is going to be the pre-roll. So when you record something, if you record and then do play, it's going to start recording right away. But sometimes, you need a little bit of time before you start recording. So right here, you can set your pre-roll. I'm going to say maybe 2 bars, and I'm going to leave it there. I'm just going to, get out of this screen, and I'm going to be recording. Remember, we have the default sound. I'm going to hold it and then clear, and this is counting. It's not really recording. And then after 2 bars, it's going to start recording. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is the way you set up your pre-roll, which is something super useful when you are recording live. And you can set it up to craziness, maybe 16 bars. You're going to be waiting for a long time before you can start recording. It depends. This depends on you. In my case, I always use 1 bar, maybe 2 bars if it's something, way complicated. Again, this is just completely up to you. Okay, so you have something else called the micro timings. I'm going to be talking about the tempo too. So if I go to grid recording and I add a step right here, here, and here, and then I play it back, we just get it, right? So what you can do, you can offset whatever trigger that you add right here. And how you do it is that you need to press and hold, and then the right and the left is going to be the offset. And notice that most of the functions, you get the main name, but at the bottom, you have a secondary function. In this case, it's going to be time plus and time minus. So when you type it, it's going to give you a screen called micro timings. So if I go to the right, it's going to be offsetting this step to the right. Notice it's playing it a little bit later, and it's because it's offsetting the trigger time on this one. That's why it's offsetting. It's micro timings. Now, by holding it back, and, pressing the same thing, you can just maybe put it back where it was, going all the way at center, and it's going to be right on grid. And it says right there, on grid. And you can go to the other side and do it like that. Right? So again, another function that we get on this device. I'm going to be stopping it, and now we need to discuss whatever we get on tempo. All right, so by tapping the tempo, you're going to be accessing the tempo page. I'm going to be playing it, and I'm going to, get out of the recording, the grid recording. So when you're standing right here, the level data is going to be the control for your BPMs. You can go faster, all the way up, or you can go down just like this. And notice is you need to do a lot of scrolling in order to get somewhere. So it's a little bit too laggy. So all the encoders, not this one, but this ones and this ones, they are you can push them. They are buttons. So if you push and then you move it, it's gonna go in greater values. It's gonna be a little bit easier to go up and down the BPMs. Now it's, really fast. And if you don't press it and you just move it, it's gonna go in, 1 BPMs units. All right, I'm gonna stay on 120. Now, notice that you have other options. You have the swing, and right here you have something that says function or FN, and then yeah or Y, and it's global BPM. So right now, you're standing on the pattern. What the F do I mean with standing on the pattern? So right now we are standing on bank number 1 and then pattern number 1, and the BPM for that one is going to be 120. If I save the pattern and then move to the bank B and the pattern number 2, let's say, maybe that pattern is going to be 80 BPM. And I'm just giving you an example. Pattern 1, 120, pattern number 2, 80. So when you cue or change different patterns, if the mode is going to be pattern, whenever you cue to the next pattern, it's going to be 120 or 80 or 130, depending on where you're landing or where you're going in terms of pattern, because the BPMs is per pattern. If you do function and you do yes, you're going to be changing this to global. So now the BPM is global. If you change to the pattern number 1 or 7 or 8 or 16, it doesn't matter. The BPM will keep, it will be constant. It's going to be 120 BPMs. And this is important if you're creating a performance, maybe you're performing live and you want to keep a consistent BPM through the different, the different patterns. When you cue different patterns, well, this is the way you go. You do function and then yes, and it's going to be changing from pattern to global. All right, so I'm going to be going to pattern right now. Another thing that you can do, if I play it back, you have the left and the right arrow. Now, if I press it, notice that something weird happens. What this will do, it will nudge the tempo up or it will nudge the tempo down. All right? Pretty simple. So if you think about this, it's like something that you get on Ableton, something like that. So it goes faster and then it goes slower. At the beginning, this is a little bit confusing, but once you get it, it's just going to go up or it's going to go down. That's it. And when you release it, it's going to go back to the original BPM. And another thing that you can do, if you go to the E, right here it says E, it's going to be the swing. Right now, we don't have anything that sounds like, gives us the swing, but you can swing it. Right here is a pretty common function that you get on all sequencers. Now, if you want to tap the tempo, you can do function and then do 1, 2, 3, 4, and you're gonna be able to change the tempo to whatever you want. You can do it on this screen. I'm gonna do 1, 2, 3, 4, and gonna go slower. All right, so now we need to talk. Okay, so we need to talk about the pattern and the track length. Now, so far we've been using 16 steps, and if I do something, maybe I go to grid recording and I enter something and I play it back and maybe get out of this, we can see it right here. So you have 4 different pages. That's why it's 1 of 4, 2 of 4, 3 of 4, and then 4 of 4. And you can go up to 64 steps. And the light is stuck on the number 1. It's because we are only using 16 steps. But what if I wanted to make it more? So to do this, I'm going to be going to function, hold the function, and then I'm going to be tapping the page. This is going to take you to the length main menu, let's say. You can go to the E, to this one, and you can go up and it's going to be changing the length. 20 of something, it's going to be the second page. And as you keep scrolling and scrolling, it's going to be giving you more steps. And notice that something funny happens. When you go up on this one, what you can hear at the back is that it's copying whatever you had on the first 16, and then it's pasting it on the next page or steps. Right, if I go all the way back to 16, you have an easier way, which is going to be when you're standing on this, you can go to page, you can tap it, and it's going to just go by 16s all the way up, and then if you tap it, it's going to go back to 16. It's just a little bit easier. But again, it's just copying whatever you have on the 16 and pasting it on the next 16. And as you do so, notice that the lights, they will go on right here, telling you how much steps that you're using or which page that you're using. Now, if I go back to, I'm going to go back to 16. Also, when you're standing on a page, in this case, the first 16, all the buttons right here are going to be red or enabled. If I do 3, it's going to change it to 3 steps. So you can handle it from here. And this is also a good live performance tool, right? So you can just change it on the spot. In this case, I'm going to go to 16. I'm going to keep the 16 steps. All right, so that's how you change the steps. On the other side, you have the resolution, which is going to be the scale. By default, it's going to be 1x. But if you go to the this one, you can go up, and it's going to be changing the resolution. It's going to be going faster. You can go up to 2x, and that's it. But you can go slower, and it's really slow, right? And 1x is going to be, the default one. Okay, I'm going to make it a 64 steps long type of sequence. To get out of the screen, you need to press no, and it will just get out. Notice that as the sequence goes, the lights right here will tell you where you're standing, on which page you're standing. You're going to go to first page, first 16, second 16s, then third, and then fourth, right? Now, what if you want to stay on a page so you can edit whatever is that's going on? So we need to go to grid recording, right? It's steady red. And then the page is going to be steady on a single one. And behind, in the back, you can see that it's showing you where it's going or on which page it's playing back. But you're staying on the page number 1. So if I tap the page, it's going to let me go to the page number 2, the 3, or the 4. So if I wanted to maybe edit something that happens on the page number 3, I can go right here, make the changes, and when we hit the page number 3, we can hear the changes. Right? But you need to be on grid recording to toggle through the different pages to make the changes. Okay, so whatever it is that we are doing with the pages and the track length works on a pattern level. It means that if I do function and page, if we change the length, it's going to be changing the length for the track number 1, the 2, the 3, and the 4. The whole pattern, all the different tracks. What if I wanted to have different lengths? Maybe 3 steps for the track number 1, 16 for the 2, 64 for the 4, and something like that. Now you can do something like this, and right here you see the option. It's going to say function yes, and you're going to be enabling the per track. So I'm going to be doing function yes to change to per track mode. And at the top, it's telling you on which track you're standing. Right now, we are doing 64ths and scale 1 of the track number 1. But if I go to the track number 2, we can offset this by going, to 16 steps or, something like that on the track number 2. If I go to track number 1, it's back to 64. This one is going to be doing 16. If I go to the track number 3, we can change it to maybe 16 steps and maybe, doing 3 steps or something like that. And you will be getting different lengths for different tracks. And this will, again, create very interesting rhythms. All right, so this is how you handle the per track or the length. Now, you have a different thing that it's going to be related to this, but it's a little bit different. Right there in the right side, it says pattern, and you have something that says CH and then M length. So the M length is going to be the master length, and the CH is going to be change. The first time I worked with Elektron, I thought it was channel, but no, it's change. All right, so I'm going to be going to pattern number 2, and I know that one is a blank. pattern, we have nothing. And I want to create an example just to show you how the master length and the change length works. I'm going to go to grid recording. I'm staying on the track number 1, and I'm going to be recording something dumb. If I play it, and again, it's just going to be something dumb. If I go to function and go to page, we have the, the normal one. I'm going to say function. I'm going to say yes. Okay. So on this track, on the track number 1, I want to make it 64 steps long, but I also wanted to do it faster. So I'm going to go to F, and I'm going to be going up to 2x. So we are doing 64 steps of the track number 1, and we are going twice as fast. Now the master length is going to be 16. Now remember, I'm creating an example. All right, so I'm going to be getting out of this, and I'm going to go back to the main menu. So the master length and the change length, they really play a part when you need to queue or when you need to see what's going on right here. Remember that we have 64 steps of the track number 1, but the lights, they show something else. Right now, it shows that we have page 1 and then page 2, so we have 34 steps. But if you think about this, it's 64. The only difference is that we are doing twice as fast. That's why we just get page 1 and then we get page 2. Now, if I go to function and then I go to page, I'm going to be changing the master length. I'm going to be going to the H and make it 32 steps long. I'm going to go there to 32. Now, if I exit, you can see that the 4 lights are going to be on, because now we are just, making the master length larger, and we can see the whole progression of the track number 1 through the 4 different pages. And also, if I get out of the recording mode, we can pretty much, see everything that is going on when we move on to the next page. This is, one of the reasons we get the master length. Now, the other reason is what is going to happen when we queue a different pattern. How many steps is going to wait before we go to the next pattern. I'm going to be going to the tempo, and I'm going to be going maybe to 100, so it's a little bit slower, and we can follow it. Maybe 100, that's fine. And I'm going to be playing this back. So remember now that we have 4 different pages. What I want to do, when this starts and it's on page number 1, I'm going to be going to pattern, and I'm going to switch to the pattern number 3. So I'm queuing a different pattern, right? So I'm going to do play. I'm going to be holding the pattern, and as soon as we are in the first, I'm going to be queuing to the next pattern. Notice what happens. And then it's changing. So it's awaiting for the whole thing to be over to change to or to go to the next pattern, to queue in the next pattern. Now, if I go to the pattern number 2, which is the one where we have something, go to function, go to page, and I change the M length to something else. So if I play it back, notice that we have 1 light and 2 lights, same example than before. I'm going to be going to pattern, and I'm going to change it as soon as I see it goes to the first one. Notice it takes a lot less time, and it's because, of course, the master length now is 16, so it's waiting 16 to change, and not 32. Now, all of this is very important when you need to queue to different patterns, and you need to know how much you need to wait or how much of the sequence needs to be played before you change to the next one. So that's part of the function of the master length. But then you have the other one, which is going to be the change length. So the change length is going to say, master length, I know that maybe you are 32 steps. I really know that. But what I want to do when I queue, I want to do it on 16. So when I go up on the change length, it's going to help you with this. I'm going to go to 16. And if I get out and play it, when we change it or queue something else, it's going to listen to the change length and not so much to the master length. I'm going to stand on pattern and be ready. Almost there. It's going to complete the whole cycle. And remember, it's 16. So I'm going to be going, and it changes. Notice that it didn't wait for the 4 pages to be completed, which is what we have on the master length. I'm going to go back and do it again. I'm going to go there. I'm going to be going like that. I'm going to be playing it. I'm going to wait for the whole thing to go. And I'm going to do this. It is only going to wait. It's only waiting for 2 pages to be done before you're queuing the next pattern. And it's not waiting for the 4 pages. Right, so all this is super important when you're working with, different lengths on your tracks, and when you want to cue different patterns. Now, another thing that you can do, you can set the master length to crazy values. Or if you go all the way down, let me just show you what happens when we do something like this. I'm going to go to inf. And then on the other one, on the change length, I'm going to be setting it to off. So we have off and we have inf. If I play it back, I'm going to be holding the pattern and I'm going to be queuing. Oh, made a mistake. I'm going to be queuing the next pattern. And I want you to notice that it will never change. It's not changing. And we are, trying to cue to the next pattern. It's just not doing it, right? So if I stop it and then I play it back, we are staying on the pattern number 3. So when you set it to inf, it will just, oh, made a mistake right there. Let me go to pattern number 2 and I go func and page, and we are staying on inf. It doesn't matter when we change or cue the next one. It will not do it until, we stop and play it back. So that's why we have, of course, the change length. I can decide how much I'm going to be waiting before I change or cue the next pattern. Now, if I do it again, make sure that you're standing there. I'm going to be doing playback. I'm going to hold the pattern and do 3 to change to the next one. It's going to be 16 steps, and then it's going to cue the next one. Now, the important takeaway from this is that right here, you can handle the length of all the different tracks, right? Now in this section, I will show you how the synth engine works on this device, and at the same time, I need to go through some FM 101. So if you struggle to understand FM, or even if this maybe is your first synthesizer, you need to stay and watch this, because you cannot create sounds if you don't understand how the Syn 1 and the Syn 2 works. Now, if you are an FM wizard, everything I will show you right here is going to be a little bit obvious, so you might want to skip the section and move on to the next one. Okay, so I'm going to stay on the algorithm number 2. Now, in FM, you don't have oscillators. What you do get is operators. Now, the trick of FM is that an operator can modulate another operator. So it's like stacking oscillators. But the sound that each operator produces doesn't go to the speakers. Only a couple of operators can. The operators that modulate other operators are called modulators. And the operators that go out are called carriers. Now, any operator can go out, can modulate other operators, can self-feedback to itself, and so on and on and on. So how all of that happens, it's based on a formula, and that is what we call the algorithms that you have right here. And on the synthesizer, you can use only 8. On some other synthesizers, you have more, like 32 or something like that. On this one, you can only do 8. Now, on this device, we have 4 different operators. We have the A, we have the B1, the B2, and the C. And if you're asking which one is the B1, well, the B1 will always be the one at the bottom, the one close to the Y. And the B2, it will always be a modulator. It's going to be at the top. Now, like I said before, in this synthesizer, we have 8 different algorithms, and all of them are going to really change the sound, and, depending on what you're using. And it will change the orders of the operators. I'm going to go back to the number 2. Now, in the synthesizer, X and Y is the output, is going to be what comes out. For example, if I go to the algorithm number 1, the C is going to go out, to the speakers. But at the same time, it's being modulated by the A. Then on the other side, we can see the B, and the B can go out through the Y. But at the same time, it's going to be modulated by the B2. And on top of that, the chain of B2 and B1 is going to be tapping between the A that modulates the C. And also the A can modulate itself. That's how we can explain, this algorithm. If I go to the number 2, this one is going to be simpler. Notice that the X and the Y are just not related. It goes out on the X or it goes out on the Y. C, it's going out, but can be only modulated by A, and then B1 is going out and can only be modulated by B2 that can self-feedback to itself. And if we keep moving, all the different operators can do something like that. C is coming out, B is going to tap to that X, and then the other B is going to go out to the Y, and they all can be modulated by the A. And we can just, keep analyzing all the different algorithms. Now, for now, I'm going to be staying on the number 2 because it's the easy one. Now, in this case, again, we have the C going out, modulated by the A, and then the B1 going out, being modulated by the B2. So we have X and Y, right? So right here you have a mix. So you can select which one you would like to listen. If you want to stay on the X and just get the chain of the X, or you can get a combination of both, or just go to the Y. So right now, it doesn't matter which combination I'm using, if it's the Y or the X, I'm always getting a sine wave, and you can see it on the oscilloscope. It doesn't matter where I play, how I move this, it's always a sine wave. It is because all the operators are using a sine wave. And this is, traditionally what we get with FM. We work with sine waves. Nowadays, we can use other things, but we can on this synthesizer as well with the harm. We're going to talk about that in a minute. Right, so we know algorithms, we know what an operator is, which is pretty much all of them, what the carrier is, which is the one that goes out. We know that we have an X and a Y, and next one coming on right up is going to be the ratios. Now, ratios is like the tuning of your operator. In traditional synthesis, like a good old, for example, Minimog, what we can do, we can change the tune by octaves or by range. Now, ratios are a little bit like that, but they don't follow the same rules. So right here at the top, this one is the algorithm, but the other ones will change the ratio. And notice it says 1.001, and then everything, we get everything on 1. But this ones will change the ratio for the C, the A, and then the B. We're going to talk about this a little bit more in a minute. So I'm all the way to the X, so I'm only getting what comes out of the C operator, which in this case is going to be the carrier. I'm going to be playing a C, and what we get back is going to be a C, right? And it's because it says 1 right there, right? Because I'm playing a C, I'm getting a C. And what happens if I go up on this ratio, I'm going to go to 2. And now I'm going to be playing it, and what we get back is a C. But it's going to be an octave higher, so, it makes sense. So I could assume that if I go to 3, I'm going to be getting the same deal, a C, but, 2 octaves higher. And if I play it, we don't. We just get a G. And why the F do we get a G? How a ratio works is that it's going to multiply the frequency of whatever it is that you have, and it's going to multiply it by something. And I'm going to be showing you right now. I'm going to go back to C. So if I play it, you can see on the screen that it's 261.55 hertz, right? Okay. So if I go 2, it's going to be that frequency 261.55 times 2, and that's going to be equal to 523.11 hertz. Now in this case, that's the frequency of C. That's why we get a C. Now, if we do the same trick, and if we follow the same rule, if I move up, we need to do 261.55 times 3. So if we do that, we're going to fall into 784.67 hertz. That it's not a C, it's going to be a G. And that's why we get a G. So when you change ratios, you need to be aware that you're not changing to a new octave of whatever key that you're playing. It might be something else because you're doing a math operation. Oscillator C can be changed in ratios by 1. So the math is going to be a little bit easier. Now, oscillator C usually is a carrier on this synthesizer. And I'm talking about on this synthesizer. C, it's usually a carrier. But oscillator A, the one at the top, usually is going to be a modulator. So on this one, we get different ratios. We can, instead of going by ones, we can go in fractions. So if I play it, I'm going to go stand on 1. And I'm going to go to sin, and I'm going to be going up in level. We're going to talk about this in a minute. I'm going to go back to sin. And if I play it, we get a little bit, we get something else. Again, we're going to talk about this. So right now, I'm modulating the C with the frequency of A. They are both using the same one. Now, if I go up on this one can go into fractions. Notice it says 1.25 and we don't go to 2. We can go to 1.5, 75, and then we go to 2. So on oscillator A, the fact that we can use fractions, it means that we have more possibilities because this will cause an inharmonic relationship between the carrier and the modulator. It's not locked to integers like we get with the C. And notice that changing ratios really affect the sound massively. Alright, I'm gonna leave both on 1. Now then you have the B side. I'm gonna go all the way to the Y, which is where we have the B. If not, we are not gonna get anything. So the B is a little bit different from the C and the A. Still, their relationship, it's pretty much the same. Now, the number you see at the bottom is going to be for the B1. Right here, the ratio is going to be the B1. And the other one is the one at the top, the B2. So the B2 usually modulates B1. In this case, if I play a key, we get the good old sine wave because, we have a 1-1 relationship. But how this works is that we are changing the B2 and we go through all the different ratios until we cross 16, and then it goes to B2 ratio 2. Now, right now, we are not doing anything in terms of level. So I'm going to go to here, and I'm going to go up on this one. Again, we're going to talk about this in a second. So now we are doing some modulation. If we change the ratios of this, the B2 is affecting the 1. And as we keep going up, we're going to be getting more until we go to 2 of the 1, 3 of the 1, and so on, and so on, and so on, and so on. Alright, so this is how the B1 and the B2 works. In order to change the ratios, you will need to take into account that they have a, very strong relationship. Alright, so I'm going to be going right here. I'm going to go all the way down a level and all the way down a level. So if I go back, if I stand on the B side, I play something, I get a sine wave. I go to the other side, I get a sine wave. Now, if I change the ratio of the A, which is the modulator, I get the same sine wave. And if I go to B and change the ratio of the B2, which is the modulator of B1, we get sine wave. So we always get the same thing. So in FM, how it works is that the modulator, the one that will be affecting the carrier, needs to carry or needs to have some volume or some level. If not, it's completely silenced, it's not emitting any sound, and you will get no modulation. Now, by default, when you start a new patch, the A and the B are going to be completely silent. That's why the level is all the way down. So it doesn't matter if you're using the C and the B or, right here, you're whatever it is that you want to be. You're going to be getting nothing. Now, I'm going to go all the way to the X right now, and I'm going to go to the scene number 2. So what I want to do, I want for the A to provide or to modulate the C. So right there at the top, we get the A and the level of the A. So as soon as we go up, we're going to be starting getting more and more and more and more. More level, more modulation. Until we get something like that. And I know it's a little bit too loud, but it's how it works. So more level, more modulation. And I'm going to stay around here for now. So the same thing is going to happen on the other one. On the B, if I go all the way to the Y, we got a sine wave. If I go there, this is going to be the level of the B. The B is going to be modulate. The B2 will modulate the B1, and we get the same deal. Go up, we get more. All right. So if you do no level, you will be getting no modulation. The operators or the modulators will not affect the carriers. I'm going to go to mix and I'm going to go to X. I'm using the A and the C. So if I play something, you need to remember that in fact that we are doing, some modulation. The modulator is affecting the carrier. The ratio relationship will really change the sound. If I go up, or maybe I go down on this one, we really get different tones. So you will always need to try different ratios and see what you get. We know that the algorithm is going to change the order and it will really affect it. The ratios, we know how the ratios work. We know what an operator is. We know what the carrier is, what the modulator is. And then we know that we can blend or, go to the X to the Y or just get a nice blend between both. The next thing we learned is that the level of the modulators will really affect the carriers. And then we have the next big thing, which is going to be the envelopes that we have right here. Now, on this occasion, I'm using the A and the B. So if I go right here, the only thing that we are doing is providing more level. But the modulation is constant. It's only the same level and it's not changing at all, right? If I play it. So what happens if we use an envelope to have the volume go up and down when we play the keys? And on this envelope, we have an attack, a decay, and an end. And I'm going to give you an example. Let's say that on this one, I want a slow attack, right? I'm going to go up, I'm going to go there, I'm just going to provide a slow attack. I'm going to go down, and I'm going to have a nice decay. So what do you think is going to happen? So this envelope, what it does is going to take the volume, do something like that very slowly, and then decay very slowly back to nothing. So, this is what it's going to happen. So if I play a key, starts a sine wave, it's going to take a little while. We're going to get full, and then it goes back. If we want a slower transition, maybe we can do a little bit more. The envelope is going up in volume slowly, and then going down in volume slowly, decaying. Now, if we want to keep some of the modulation, then we need to go to the end, and we need to say, I don't want you to go down completely, all the way down to 0 level. I want you to stay somewhere in between. Goes up, decays, and it's gonna go down, but it's gonna stay somewhere in between. That's how it works. All right. Now, just by doing this, handling the envelopes and how is affecting, the carrier, you're gonna be getting completely different sounds. In this case, you're getting a plucky sound because the envelope is super fast. If I make it a little bit larger, just like that, we get a little bit, more tone. We get a tail now. So the envelopes and how it will, the modulator envelope will affect the carrier, it's super important. Now, if I go to the synth, the synth 1, now on the other one, we go to the Y, we have the same deal on the other one. If I play something, you're going to be getting something like that because we are doing a lot of level. But if we go down, we get nothing. So the only thing we need to do is just provide a little bit of envelope. In this case, let me just something like that. Right, it's going to go up, it's going to modulate and slowly going down. Maybe I want something a little bit faster. Now I'm going really aggressive on level. I can go down on level and it's going to be way less. Let me do a little bit more. Right, so this is FM. You use ratios, you set up your algorithm, your envelopes and level and how much modulation you want to get. All right, so let me just show you the next thing. I'm going to be going almost back to default, but I am going to be doing some modulation in both around 70, right? Something like that. There we go. So if I play a key, it's going to be something like that. If I go to the other one, it's pretty much the same. So we have other options. We have the detune and then we have the feedback. Now the detune, what it's going to be, is going to be detuning between the A and the B2. And notice that the A and the B2 usually are modulators and the other ones are carriers. So if we detune the modulators, it will affect the carriers. So I'm going to be standing right at the middle so we can get both. I'm going to be playing it and this one will be the detune. More detune, we get a different sound. Of course, if you do a little bit, you're going to be getting a little bit of movement. You can see it on the oscilloscope, but if you go really crazy, you're going to be getting some other things. Right, I'm going to go all the way to the Y. Some operators can feedback to themselves. In this case, the B2 can, and depends on the operator, it depends on the algorithm. So the feedback is going to be the same operator feedback into itself. So as you go up, you're going to get more harmonics. This is how it works. Right? Now, if I go really up, at some point, maybe I'm going to go down in volume because it's going to be really loud. You're going to be getting almost noise. This is a very noisy sound. This, of course, depends on what you want, how you want to use it. You can use it just to get a little bit more harmonics, or just to get a noisy sound. All right, so I'm going to go all the way to the Y, and I'm going to go back to the sin, and maybe I'm going to go down in level so we can go back to the sine waves. Now, by default, what we get right now, it's always a sine wave, and this is, what we've been using. Of course, we get some other waveforms because we are doing FM modulation. can go really wild. But everything starts with a sine wave. Let me go up in volume, maybe. Everything starts with a sine wave. But yeah, you can see it right there. But yeah, you can see it right there that everything is a sine wave. Now, you can change this, and this is going to be the harm that you get right there. And it is the icon, the drawing, the icon right there is a sine wave. So you can change the C. If I go into negatives, this is changing it. And right now, I'm not doing any level, so we are not doing modulation. We are only listening to what happens on the operator C, which is the carrier. And we are not doing any modulation. So the harmonics, or the harm, what it will do, it will change the harmonics of the C in this case, so we can get different tones. And as we go up and keep going up, almost a square, now we're going to be getting different shapes until we get close to the center. We get a saw right there. And when we get to the center, what do we get? Well, we get a sine wave. Let me just get to the center. Now, one tiny trick on this synthesizer is that let's say that you're right there and you don't need to scroll. You can do hold function and then move it, and then it's gonna, it's gonna go in whole numbers or in steps, let's say. So you can easily hold function and go back to the sine wave right there. Now, on the other side, if you go into positives, what it will do the exact same thing, but it will do it to the A and the B. Right? So I'm going to go maybe all the way to the Y, or maybe, you know what, I'm going to stay right here. I'm going to go up, and it's going to be changing the shape of the A and the B. Now, if it's changing the A and the B, it doesn't mean that the C and the B1 are, different than sine waves. They're still sine waves. The only ones changing are the A and the B. And if you go negatives, the only one changing is going to be the C. Everything else, all the other operators, are still sine waves. All right, so that's it. The thing is that I can't explain, how it works. I can just tell you what this does, how the math is, what harm it's going to do, that you can tell feedback, that you can detune, and you can have the algorithms, and how the envelopes and the level will affect, the carriers if you're just, using this on an operator. I can tell you all of this. But the thing is that you need to go out right here and explore. That's how you really learn FM or this synthesizer in this case. You need to go to the operators, change the ratios, change the algorithms while you're playing. Maybe go to the SYN and change the levels and create crazy envelopes. This is how you really learn how to use this synthesizer. Now, exploring with an FM type of synthesizer will give you great results, but you need to tweak and fool around. Don't be afraid. Just make mistakes or do something that you don't think it's gonna work. You just need to turn the knobs, right? Just turn the knobs, and if it works and it sounds cool, then it's good. Another thing that you can do if you want to learn by example, when you double tap the tracks, you can listen to something right here, and maybe you can say yes, okay, I want to load that. And if I go to SYN 1, okay, what it's doing right here is doing this ratio, is doing a little bit of detune, is extending on the C. Well, it has a little bit of harm on the C. It's using the algorithm number 7. How much is modulating is using this envelope on the A and the B. So you can go to the sound browser and just learn from the existing sounds that you have. Okay, so maybe you noticed, maybe you didn't. If you go to SYN number 2 and you tap again, you have more options. And on SYN 1, you have more options. If you go there, these ones are going to be really simple. The most important ones are going to be on the second page of the SYN 2. All right, so let me show you the SYN 1 first. I'm standing on a default patch, so the only thing that I'm getting is going to be sine waves. So I'm going to be standing on the algorithm number 2 because it's the the easy one. So when we go to the second page of the number 2, what we get is a ratio offset. So if I'm standing on the C and I'm getting just the C, with this one we can, get the change the ratio, but on the second page, what we can do, we can offset the ratio. So think of this as a fine tuning control, and we can go all the way up and all the way down. And that is, we can see on the tuner how it's changing the pitch. Remember that by going function and moving it up, you can go by, something a little bit more controllable. But the cool thing about this one is that if you go back to the main screen, you see the C, the A, and we cannot split the B, the B1 and the B2. But right here, right here you can. You have access to the offset of the B2, B1, A, and C. Now, I'm going to go maybe to stand right here. I'm all the way on the A and the C. I'm not getting anything of the B. And I'm going to go back to Sin 2. And I'm going to be doing a little bit of level. So when I play it, we are going to be getting something. And that's cool. This is what I want. So I'm going to be adding a little bit of attack, a little bit of decay, just like that. And I'm doing something like this so I can show you the example. So when I play it, the envelope, and you know what? Let me just do something like that. So as soon as I play it, of course, we are getting that modulation. So I'm going to go to the sin number 2. What is the RDEL? So this is going to be a delay. If I go up on this one, I'm going to be playing it in 3, 2, 1. This is what happens. So if I play it, we get this sine wave. And after a little while, the envelope of the A is going to kick in. And notice that there's a tiny space right here. What we do, we delay the triggering of this envelope. So that's why we get something like that. Right? So this is what it means. It's pretty simple. You're just delaying the triggering of the envelope. Now, this one is very interesting. What it does is going to change the envelope from an attack decay end to an attack sustain and decay. And if I turn it off, you're going to see the difference. Notice that there's a difference right here. I'm going to go back to the other one, Sin 2. And now I'm going to give you that example that I was, talking previously. And I'm going to be doing something like this. And this, if I play it, it's going to be something like that. Right, that's fine. I'm going to go to Sin 2 and I'm going to disable this. I'm going to be playing it. And it sounds pretty much the same. So what is the difference? Now, I'm going to be turning this on, and if I play it, notice that the sound goes up, and at some point, it's going to go down. And you know what? I'm going to make it a little bit more obvious. Or maybe going to go more level, and a little bit like that. It's going to go up, and then it goes down. And I'm still holding. I'm going to go to the other one, and just turn it off, and I'm going to be playing it. It goes up, but it's never going down, right? Maybe you can notice the difference. I play, hold, goes up, goes down. Turn it off, goes up, it never goes down. So this mode, what it does is going to add a sustain. If I'm holding the key, it's going up and it's staying up there, but it's never going down. And this depends on what you have on the amp. I'm going to be adding a little bit more release so we can hear the release. It's going to go up. Let me go back here. It's going to go up. And only will go down when I release it in 3, 2, 1. Right? So that's what it's doing. It's replacing the previous envelope, which is, the attack, decay, and end for an attack, sustain, and decay. All right, so let me go back to what we had from before. And if I play it, maybe it's going to be a little bit weird. Let me go to the amp. A little bit less release, maybe Sin 2, and I'm going to be going almost to default. Now, I'm going to double tap. And then we have the other option, which is going to be the A RST and the B RST. Now, let me add a little bit of attack. And if I play it, it's going to go up, it's going to go down, and sustain somewhere around there. There we go. And I'm doing this so I can show you the next option, which is going to be this one, the A RST, which is the reset, and the B. So if it's on, I play a key, I play a second key, play a third one, play a fourth one. It's going to be working. It's going to work like that. Now, if I go to the other one, notice it works a little bit different. First of all, it's a little bit slower. Right. So when I play a key, this one is starting from the beginning of the envelope, which is all the way down. In this case, we have some attack. So it's a little bit slow, If I play a key, if I play a new one, the same motion will make retrigger the envelope and it will start from the beginning of the envelope, which is all the way down. So we get the full attack. It's really slow, really slow. The other one, what it will do, it will take into account the end, and instead of starting all the way down on the envelope, it's going to start a little bit up. Now, if I go to off, notice that it starts from the beginning, but it's a little bit faster, 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 faster. If I go to the other one, notice the difference in how the envelope works. Right, so again, just a little bit different. It's depending on, you use this depending on what you want to do. Because if I go to end on this one and go all the way down and I go back, it's going to sound like that. But if I turn it off, it's pretty much the same, right? Makes no difference. So depending on what is your envelope and what you're doing, well, this one is going to help or not. For now, I'm just going to leave it on default. I'm going to leave it on. Now, the other thing that you get, I'm not going to show you, but I'm going to tell you what it is. It's going to be this option. So when you play operators, the waveform phase starts from the beginning. And I'm telling you this because in analog synthesis, the oscillators, they run constantly. They have a constant flow. And we usually don't get to decide where the phase of the waveform starts or where the phase of the oscillator starts. Now, in digital, since everything, this is digital, they're not analog. In digital, since everything is super controlled, we can't decide what we want. Now, if we're standing right here, the all, it means that whenever we play a key, whatever operator that we are using will restart and the phase right from the beginning. So the waveform starts right from the beginning, always. If I keep moving, you have other options. You're going to go all the way down. Off means that they will not reset at all. But this is closer to what we have on analog synthesis. For example, they have a constant flow. There's no reset. Now, the one all is going to mean all operators will restart the phase when we play a key. Then if we keep moving, we have C. It means that the only C will reset. And then we have combinations. A and B, and the B ones are going to be resetting, but not the C. And then if we keep moving forward, we have the A and the B, the B2 in this case, are going to be resetting. And notice that when you move forward, right here is going to let you know or highlight the ones that are going to be resetting. Right? Off nothing, all, C, then A and all the Bs, and then we go to A and B. All right, so I'm starting with the default project, so it's going to be the usual common sine wave, and now we need to discuss what's going to happen with the filter, the amp, and then the trigger. Now, first of all, I'm going to go to scene number 2, and I'm going to be adding a little bit of level so we can have something else that it's not just a sine wave. And maybe that's too much. All right, so that's fine. So I'm going to go to filter. Now, on this one, we just get a good, good old common synth filter. So right here we have the frequency and right here we have the resonance. If I play a key and go down, again, it works just like a good old filter. We have the resonance. We can add a little bit of resonance. Maybe we're going to go down in volume. And we can sweep, just like a normal filter. Now also you have different types of filters. This is why it's called a multi-mode filter. So if I go all the way up, down, it's going to be off, so you have no filtering. The next one is going to be a low pass, but it's going to be a 2-pole low pass. The next one is going to be a high pass. And if we keep moving on, it's going to be the same low pass, but it's going to be a 4-pole. So it's a little bit more aggressive than the other one. And if we keep going up, we have no more filters. Now, on the other variations of this, type of synthesizer, the Digitact and Syntact, you may have a little bit more filters. So I'm guessing maybe one day you're going to be getting an update with more filters, but, I really don't know. So this is the, the most common options you get in a filter, the cutoff, then you get the resonance, and you get the different types of filters. You have an envelope, so you can modulate this when you play a key. I'm going to leave it right here. Now, going to the right side, it means that you're going to be using the ADSR that you have at the top to modulate the filter up and down. If I do a little bit of attack, it's going to be slow, going up, and then at some point it's going to go down. And same thing right here. Again, I feel like I don't need to explain this. It's just a pretty simple ADSR. And if you add release and a little bit of sustain, you need to have some release right here, of course. Again, just a normal ADSR. One thing that you need to take into account that is if you tap it again, you have more options. So you have a delay. And if you remember on the Sin 2, we also have a delay. Well, this is pretty much the same thing. If I go here and play it, maybe I'm gonna be going to no attack so we can get it right away. I'm gonna be going to filter number 2 and I'm gonna be adding a delay. So I play it, it's gonna take a little while and then it's gonna kick in. And if we go back to the main screen, notice that we can see the delay right there. Alright, so again, pretty standard controls. I'm gonna go all the way back to nothing. And then you have the base and the width. Now, so this is what this is a filter. It's a different filter. It's a secondary filter. The thing is that this filter comes before the multi-mode filter. So what you can do, you can use this one to cut the lows or cut the highs, right? So notice if I do something like that, it's really cutting the lows, and you can move it just like this. And the main purpose of this is that you can do some control on this one that comes before the other filter. So it's like having a filter before the filter, pretty much. This is completely up to you. Depends on the sound that you want. Now we need to talk about the amp, and right here again is just very simple options. And notice that I'm kind of going pretty fast on this ones because we spent a lot of time doing the synth. And all of these options are just, pretty simple. The amp is just going to control the volume. So what you get is your common ADSR control, and you have your level. Now, on this synthesizer, like on all the Elektron devices, you have different gain stages. This one controls the level of the track, and this one controls the level, but you're going to be controlling it from the amp section. Right? And right here, this one controls how the sound goes out, if you want attack, if you want decay, or if you want sustain, and if you want release. Then on this one, you can go all the way to the left or go pan it all the way to the right. And I guess I don't need to explain this. It's pretty simple. Right there, you're dead center. And what you have is a drive that you, again, get on most of Elektron devices. Now, if you double tap this, if you tap it again, it's going to take you to the next screen, which is going to be how much you're going to be sending to the effects. You have a nice chorus, you have a nice delay, and you have a nice reverb. Alright, so on the Trig, you have a bunch of options. Okay, so on the Trig, you have a bunch of options. The first one is going to be the pitch, then you have the velocity, the length, probability. So again, this section, it's super important. So if I keep playing, the first option is going to be changing the pitch. And notice it's changing it, but we cannot hear it. It's always the same pitch. And it's because I'm using the keyboard, right? So I'm going to be getting what the keyboard is supposed to do. But if I go into grid recording and I record something and play it back, what I can do, I can press this key, and now I can change the pitch to something else. It doesn't matter what. I'm going to be changing it. And notice I'm pressing and holding and then changing the pitch. Right, maybe I can add one here and just change it. Right, so this is what you can do with the pitch. Now the other thing is going to be the velocity. So maybe you noticed or maybe you didn't, but these keys are not velocity sensitive. So you're going to need to set it up from here. So maybe this one is going to go down in velocity, press and hold this, and this one is going to go up in velocity and then go down. And then you're going to be able to program all of this. Right? That's how it works. All right. So let me just delete this, and I'm just going to keep the first one. So then you have the len. So this is going to be the length of the trigger. This is how we call it, trigger. So if I press and hold and I move this len up, notice that the duration of the trigger, or in this case the note, is going to be way longer. If I keep it up, is going to last pretty much the whole 16 steps, right? And if you press and hold, you're going to be able to see it, how much you're doing. So this is, the length. If I go all the way up crazy, it's going to be like, super long until it restarts or re-triggers. If you want to get rid of this, just remove it and then add it again. Now, if the sound engine is stuck in some fashion, you need to triple tap the stop. Now, let's keep moving forward. Then you have the FLT and then T and the LFO T. So every time that we tap something right here, we are adding a trick. This is going to be a trigger. Of course, it's going to be playing a note, but every time that it does, it's going to trigger the envelope of the filter, and it's going to be triggering the LFO. So if you don't want for, whatever trigger to trigger the filter or the LFO, you need to go here and say this one is not going to re-trigger the envelope and it's not going to re-trigger the LFO. So if you're using the filter or the LFO, they will not get triggered by this step. All right, so for now, we're just going to remove it and add it again. Now then you have the portamento. Maybe let's talk about the probability. So if I press and hold, right here, it's going to give you a conditional. Now, by default, it's going to be this percentage. This is going to be the probability. If I go down, this one is not playing. Maybe I'm going to go to 50% and this one on 50%. So the probability means that sometimes it will play and sometimes it will not. It is not playing, not playing, playing, not playing. So yeah, it's a probability. Now, when you press and hold, you have a lot more options going to the right side. You have the fills, the pre, the, nay, and all of this. Now, I'm not going to cover all of this on this video because it's a pretty long topic. Now, still, I've recorded a whole guide talking about all the different conditionals and how you can use them. I did it for Digitact and I did it for the Syntact. You can find those videos. It's pretty much the same thing. All right, what else do we have? So we have the portamento. So if I don't know, play something like this and change the tune to whatever, it doesn't matter. You have the portamento. I can go right here and just turn it on. And notice that we get the portamento. Right? Then you have the portamento time, which is going to mean how much it's going to take for that portamento. And right here, I have to give you a tiny little gotcha. I'm going to stop it. So when you go to function, and then go to trigger, notice that below it says setup. So when you go to setup, you have a million more options. This device is super big. It's impossible to cover on a single video. And I've recorded a different video talking about all the options that you have on the setup. So you have key scaling, you have, again, a lot of options. I'm going to be discussing that on that video. But in this one, you have the portamento. So here you can configure a lot more options about the portamento. And yeah, I will need to provide an example for all the options because sometimes it's a little bit confusing. But if you go out on the trick, you just get the on and the portamento time. So what happens if you want to reset something, right? If you want to reset a param, let me just start over. I'm going to delete everything. I'm going to be maybe adding something right here. And if I play it back, let's say that I'm going to be going to filter and I'm going to be doing something like that, maybe a little bit of modulation, right? Something like that. What happens if I want to reset this because I don't want it? So what you can do, you can go to the filter, press and hold. It will let you know the values that you're using. That's one of the functions when you press and hold, but you can press no. And notice that we are back to default and it says reload page filter. So what it will do, it will reload whatever was the last or the saved state of whatever params you have on the filter. All right, that's what it does. If I do the same thing, press the whatever param, it doesn't work for the trigger. If I do filter and I do yes, it's going to randomize that page. You're going to be getting different things. Sometimes, of course, it's usable. Sometimes it's not. But, it's going to be a randomized thing. Right. Now, what if you want to, let me stop it for now. What if you want to reload some param? I'm going to go back to the beginning. So reloading the initial state. I'm going to be doing something like this and leave it there. what if I just want to reload all whatever we have on the filter, but I just want to do it to the filter. Now, all of the encoders that you have right here, you can push them. So if you push, you keep push and hold, right? And then you do know is going to be resetting that param only. And notice it says cut of a clear frequency. So it's just going back to the initial state of the frequency. Now I'm going to be double tapping just to go to, I don't know, to whatever sound. Maybe I like this one. I'm going to be saying yes. I'm going to be selecting that one. And if I play it, we get it. What if I want to go back? We already know, we discussed this, but if I hold the track and then say no, it's going to go back to whatever sound that was saved on this pattern, which was not the one we were using on the sound browser. It's going to be the default sound. Then if you saved your project and your pattern, of course, it's going to load the last save state. And there's a lot more of this when we talk about the thing that says right here, save pattern and reload pattern. We're going to talk about that in a minute. Is a different topic. Okay, so now we need to talk about one of the most important features of all, on all the Elektron devices, which is going to be locking. Now, once you get this, and of course you understand all the previous sections of this guide, you are pretty much done. Then the rest is just going to be, covering some very specific parts. But if you know how to work the sequencer, how to use the synth, the synthesizer, and, the filter, the amp, the triggering, and how the sound engine, the browser works, you're going to be pretty much done. So, okay, so let me show you how this works. I'm standing on a default project right here. And I'm going to be standing on the track number 1, right? Just the track number 1. And if I play it, it's going to be the default dumb sine wave that we get. Now, I'm going to be entering in grid recording, right? And I'm going to be adding a step to 1, or trigger to 1, 9, then 5, and then 13. And if I play it, we get something like that. All right, so it's pretty simple. So the locking, it means that we can, and we already did it on the previous section, we can press and hold a trigger, in this case the 1, the 5, or whatever, and we can change whatever of the params that we get right here. So in this case, you know what, I'm going to be going to Syn2, and I'm going to be doing a little bit of, a little bit of something, because it's going to be just sine waves. Right. So remember, we can change whatever is that we can see or we have on the params. So let's say I'm going to be going to the 1 and I'm standing on the syn number 2. Well, this one is going to be a little bit more aggressive on the first. And this one is going to be a little bit more aggressive on the second one. And that is that we are getting it. Right? Maybe I want to change the, maybe the ratio on this one. Why not? We can. I'm going to be changing the ratio to something else. There we get it. I'm going to be going more aggressive on this one. Right. Then I'm going to be going to this and just going really wild. Let's go to filter. Maybe I'm going to be adding more triggers right here. And in this one, we are going to be doing something a little bit more. So what we are doing is that we are changing on a step-by-step basis what happens on each trigger. Maybe I'm going to be going to this one. There we go. All right, so this is what it's called param locking on the Elektron world. And notice that if I stop it, some of the triggers are blinking, which, in this case, almost all of the triggers are blinking. And this is because they hold a param lock. Now, by holding this, they highlight it when you go to the different screens, the highlighted options, they will show you whatever is that you locked. In this case, on this one, I did the ratio. Maybe, let's see, on this one, I param locked the level of whatever is that we are doing right there. And so on, and so on, and so on, right? And this one, we did the filter. We can see that it's highlighting the filter. So yeah, that's it. This is param locking. And if you think about this is a way of doing automation or motion sequence. And that's the way it's called on different synthesizers. Right. So what if you want to remove? One thing that you can do, you can remove the steps and then just add them again. And you're going to be back to default. Right. Okay. So I'm going to be standing, on this one, and I'm going to go to Syn2. I'm going to be doing more on this. more on this, and I'm going to be, I don't know, going right here and just funking up the ratios. If I play it, that one is going to be really funky. All right. So if you have multiple params that you, where you did some locking, what you can do while holding this trigger, you can tap the data that holds that param lock. And by doing so, you're going to be erasing that lock. If I go there and I tap this and I tap that, they're gone. All right, so we can do this step by step, going to each of the params and just, move change the params. Can we do this live? Yes, we can. So I'm going to be stopping. Remember how to live record, press and hold again, and then tap. And if the blinking red, it means live recording. So again, we can go to maybe Sin and just, move that one. Maybe the filter, why not? And this is doing it. Maybe we can go to the second of amp and just mess with the effects. Right? But yeah, you can do it live. Now, I'm going to be going to funk and I'm going to be clearing the whole sequence. If I play back, we have nothing. And if we enter to grid recording, we have nothing. I want to show you something else. I'm going to be entering into grid recording and add step to 1, 9, then 5, and then 13. Right? If I live record, right, we know that we can modulate whatever it is that we have and then just do something else. And I'm going to be doing that, right? So I just did it. Now I'm going to be stopping this. Now, if I go to grid recording, notice that we have something different. We have the red, and they're blinking, of course, and then we have yellow. Right, so why do we have red and why do we have yellow? So the red means that you have a trigger, right? So we are playing a note right here, right here, right here, and right here. And on the other ones, we did some param locking when modulating the synth of the two, right? Of the B. So it's recording that motion on the other steps. But the thing is that on the other steps, we don't have triggers. So the way for the digitone in this case, to let you know that you have some param locking on those steps where you don't have a trigger, it's the color yellow. And the blinking, it means that, of course, you have some param blocking indeed. Now, I'm going to be clearing the whole sequence. If I want to add a param block that it contains no trigger information, if I tap this, I cannot. That's going to be adding a trigger. But what you can do function and you can tap whatever it is that you want. And that will mean that this one has a param block, but it's not blinking. So it means that you don't have a param block. But what you can do now that you have something yellow, when you press it, it's not going to be adding a trigger. So you can go here and move it. Oh, this one is playing. Made a mistake on that one. So this one will contain a param block, but it's not triggering any note. Now, if of course you want to add a note, you will need to tap it and add a note, right? That one is going to be adding a note. So yeah, that's what the yellow means. Now notice that this one is blinking. It means that it has a param. And I'm going to be adding a trigger right here. And on this one, I'm going to be doing a param lock. I'm going to hold it and move something. And notice the difference, right? The steady red, it means that you have a trigger. The steady yellow, it means that you have a param block, but you don't have anything. And on the other ones, they are blinking. This means that you have a trigger and you have a param block. And this one, it means that the yellow blinking, that you have a param block and you do have something assigned to something, that it's just, modulating. Now, again, this is how it works on the Elektron world. Other companies, they call this motion sequence and automation, let's say. But on the Elektron world, you call it param locking, and this is how it works. Now, before we talk about sound locks, we need to talk about the pool, the sound pool, because they are related. So again, I'm starting with a default pattern. Now, if I go to function and I press it and hold it, I'm going to go to song mode. This button is the song mode. I'm going to go there and it's going to take you to the menu and you get import sounds, export sounds, but I'm going to go to the manage sounds or sound manager, whatever you want to call it. I'm going to go there. So you have all the different sounds that you get by default and the ones that you create. So what you can do, you can select many. And I'm just going to do that. At first, maybe you're not going to get it, but you're going to get it in a minute. I'm going to say yes for this one. And I'm going to be, I don't know, doing yes. And I'm doing something random right here. I'm selecting different sounds, right? Different presets. All right, so now if I go to the left, you're going to see something that we discussed previously, the view pool. Right now, the pool is empty. Now I'm selecting a lot of sounds. What I can do, I can add them to the pool. Now, how you do it right here is that you need to copy to the first option. I'm going to say yes, and then it's going to ask you, where do you want to copy? You want to copy the sounds to some bank on your synthesizer, maybe the drive, whatever? No, what I want to do, I want to put them in the sound pool. I'm going to say yes, and there we go. It's going to say 6 sounds copied to the sound pool. Now, if I go to the left right now and I stand on the view pool, it's going to give me these 6 sounds I've selected. Now, if I go all the way down, I'm going to keep going down and down and down until we get to the very, very end. We can store inside that pool, sound pool, up to 128 sounds. And as you could guess, the 128 is the magic number with this synthesizer. So you can select or pick different sounds that you have in your banks and assign them or put them, copy them in this case, to the pool. And you can do up to 128. Now, what's the point of doing all this? I'm going to say no to get out. The thing is that now those sounds, those 6 sounds, are in the memory of the project that we are using right now. So when I'm using a sequencer, I can go to the pool and assign them to a trigger. So we might have different presets, different sounds in the same track on the same sequence. And I'm going to prove it to you. I'm going to be going to grid. I'm going to be adding some sounds right here. And we're going to get, something super dumb. Right. So this works the same way than the trigger, than the Param Locks. I need to hold whatever trigger, and I'm going to do it with my thumb. I need to move the level data. This is going to give me access to the pool. Notice that we see these 6 sounds. So I can select maybe the first. Now this trigger is going to be doing the second one. And what we are doing sound locks. And it works just like the Param Locks. The only difference is that we are just playing different sounds every time that we play or we trigger that step. And by doing this, what you're doing pretty much is using 6 different sounds on the same sequence. And this is fantastic because the synthesizer in this case is pre-limited. You can only do 4 different tracks. But by doing sound locks, you can access to 128 sounds and change them whenever you want. Now this calls sound locking. It's pretty, similar to param locking. The only difference is that you change sounds and not params. Now, if I stop it right here and I notice that all the blinking ones are the ones that contain sound locks, if I press and hold at the top, it's going to tell you which sound in the sound pool that you're using, right? This one is using the 3, this one is using the 4, this one is using the 2, and this one it's using the 5. Now, this doesn't mean that on the other sounds you cannot add the default sound that you have in your track number 1, right? If I press and hold that one, it's not going to give me anything because I'm not using the sound pool on that trigger, right? So this is sound locking. Cool. What if you want to remove it? Well, you can hold it again, and if you move this, you can go to track sound. That's going to be no sound in the sound pool, whatever it is that you're using on the track. And that's it. So the combination of sound locking and param locking and all the other things that you get on the sequencer will give you really, it gives you the ability of creating really, really cool performances. All right, so let's cover a couple more functions that you will use the whole time, like copy patterns and drags and pages. So I'm starting in a default project. I'm going to be adding something on this pattern. It doesn't matter. This is what I get back. All right, something simple. So what I want to do, I want to copy that pattern. I'm standing on bank number 1, and then I'm standing on pattern number 1. I want to copy that pattern. So with the rec is off, by holding the function, we can go to copy, which is going to be the rec. I'm going to be doing this, and it says copy pattern. Now I can go maybe to pattern number 2, and I know I have nothing right there, but the pattern is in memory. So I hold the function, and I go to paste, and it's going to be paste the pattern. And if I play it back, we just get it back on the pattern number 2. Right. I'm going to go back to pattern number 1 and stay right there, right? So what if I want to copy the track? And I mean the track number 1 in this case. So for this one, rec needs to be on. I'm going to be turning on this one. And it's the same idea. I'm going to be doing function, and I need to do copy. So I'm going to press that one, and it says copy the track. Now, since in this case, we are copying the track number 1, which is the one where I'm standing, I could maybe go to track number 2 and paste it, or maybe go to a different place and paste the track. So I'm going to be going to the track number 2. I'm going to do function with the rec enabled, and I'm going to be doing paste. So it's going to be pasting the track. And since I'm standing on the track number 2, we can see that it's pasting it. Now, I'm going to be going to func, and then I'm going to go to page, and I'm going to be making the sequence 64 steps long. Right? It's just 64 steps long, and we can see it right here. What if I want to stay maybe again on grid recording? I'm going to go to the page number 2. I'm going to make some changes right here, right? So the page number 2 contains a lot more information. There we go. So what I want to do, I want to copy this page and paste it on someplace else. Now with the rec on, what you will need to do, you will need to hold the page, just hold it, and then press rec to copy, and it's going to say copy page. Now then maybe I want to paste it on the last one. I'm going to go to the last page, and I'm going to do the same thing. Hold the page and then paste it, and it's going to be pasting that specific page to whatever page I'm standing. And we can see that, we get it. Right. Now I'm going to go and make it 16 steps long, so it's going to be a little bit easier. I'm going to be playing back. So we have, one single page of the same dumb sound. I'm going to be maybe going to sing number 2. I'm just going to add a little bit of grit, just a tiny little bit. So let's say that this sound, the one that we have right here, is the best sound I've made in my whole life. So I want to save it, right? I want to save it because I want to reuse it later. How can we do that? To store sounds, we can go to function, hold it, and then you can go to song mode. So I'm going to go to manage sounds. So once here, what we need to do, we need to select the free slot. Now remember that you will need to navigate, and by doing the bank, you can go to the different banks in your, your sound storage, your drive. I'm going to be standing on C, and if I go function all the way up, the Z001, it's free. So I'm going to stand right here, and I'm going to go to the right side, and it's going to give you the option saved here. So I'm going to be saying save here, and then it will ask you the name. Now, at the bottom, I feel like I don't need to explain this. At the bottom, you can have the legend of what you can do. Now, in this case, if you want fast typing, what you can do, you can hold the function, and then it will let you select the different characters. Now, if I go to the very end, by holding the function, it says right there, no, it's going to be delete. So you can delete the whole sound. And by holding function, you can maybe find the name. I'm going to name it Piggy. I'm going to name it Piggy. So once you're done, it's you need to do save, yes, to save. I'm going to say yes. Now, the thing is that, of course, when you save a sound, you can add text. Or, if you don't want to, you can just go to save and just add no tags. But, it's a good idea to add tags for, maybe for later. So in this case, I'm going to be selecting chord, and I'm going to be selecting, texture. And then the only thing you need to do is just to save it. You have a lot of text if you see it right here. You can, of course, reset, clear, or save. In this case, I'm going to be saving it. And there you go. Your sound is saved as texture and then chord. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about saving. And then we need to talk about the temporary save. So what if I want to save the project, right? So I'm standing on a default project. But if I go to projects, I don't really have a project. I only have presets and then create new. So I'm working on a project that was, not saved, right? So it would be a good idea to save it. Now what you could do function, hold function, and then go to settings, and it will ask you or take you to the presets where you want to save, right? So this is a fast way to enter to this screen. So what you will need to do is to select a spot where you can save it. You can say yes, and it will ask you the same thing than before. If you want, you can do function and then no to delete, and then you need to select the name. And I'm gonna be maybe not too original. I'm gonna write the name of this channel, which is gonna be XMB. And then again, you just say yes to save, and there you go, it's saved. Now, if I go to the projects and I take a look at the load project, we have the XMB project. So you see right here that it says save pattern. Now, this one is a temporary save, and we're gonna talk about that in a minute. Now, if you do function and save proj, that's why, why we get it right there, save proj, it will ask you save all patterns and project settings. The thing is that when you save the project, it's going to save the patterns by default. I'm going to say no in this case. Still, by going to settings and then going to pattern, you have it right here. You have a bunch of options, interesting options for the pattern. You can rename it, you can clear, or you can save to project. So if you do yes, it's going to be, saving it to the project. It's going to ask you whole data or just the sounds or just the sequence. I'm going to be doing hold pattern, save pattern to this project, yes, and then confirm it. And there you go. Now, still, again, if you want to save something, saving the project will make sure, you will be making sure that everything is saved and you don't lose anything. Still, if you want to save parts, you can go to pattern and save the parts. All right, so now you have something called the temporary save, and it says save pattern, and this is going to be save pattern and reload pattern. This is the temporary save. Okay, so if I play something, I have this sequence on the track number 2 and the track number 1. So this is what we have stored in the project that we just created a few seconds ago called the the XNB project. All right, so we know that whatever we have right here is the last saved state of the project, right? Okay, so I'm going to be doing function, and I'm going to be storing the default state in the temp area, and we can see it right here, pattern saved to the temp area. So now what I can do, I can maybe go, I don't know, to the track number 2, and I can add triggers, and I just can, maybe add some logs and whatever is that we want to do. We can do some experimentation, but we know that we stored whatever state that we wanted to in the temp area. So now, if I do function and I do no, it's going to roll back to the first save that we did right here, right? So when we roll back, when we do function and no, we're going back to that first saved. Now, if I do the same thing, I'm going to do function and save yes, is pattern saved to the temp area. We have, again, something saved in the temp, and we're going to do the same thing. I'm going to be doing something like this, just to show you how this works. Maybe I'm going to be going, I don't know, to the filter, to the send to, and just going to be adding more so we can, again, really hear the difference. Now, let's say I don't want this and I want to go back to the previous version, the one we saved in the temp area. Same deal, function no is going to take us back here. Now, what is the purpose of doing all of this? The purpose is that when you start something, you can save it to the temp area, and then you can go to the params, experiment with the pattern. And if you don't like what you did, you can always roll back a version to whatever was your first save in the temp area. Now, still always, if you want to reload the pattern, you can go to settings, you can go to projects, or even you can reload the pattern if you wanted to, but everything is stored in the project until, if you go to load project and I load this one, I'm going to be losing the changes. Yeah, in this case, I want to. I'm going to be loading, and we had the default version of this project, right? So the temp save, it means that it's, temporary saving whatever it is that you're doing. You're not really saving the whole pattern or the whole project. Now, again, all of this is just super useful if you want to do a little bit of experimentation, and if you don't like it, you can always do func and then no to go back. First, of course, you need to do func and yes to save a version of this in the temp area. Okay, so what about muting tracks? Again, I'm standing on the XMB project, and this is what we get by default. And we have something on the track number 2 and the track number 1. So if I change to the pattern number 2, I guess we have something right here on the pattern number 1, I'm going to be changing it. And if I do pattern and go to the number 1, we can hear the track number 1 and the track number 2. And again, if I go to pattern number 2, we can hear that we only have something on the track number 1. All right, again, I'm going somewhere. So I'm going to be stopping this and going to the pattern number 1. So you have two ways of muting. You have the pattern mutes and the global mutes. So if you go to function and then you go to bank and you keep tapping, notice that the colors right here will change, and right there at the top is going to say global mutes, and then it's going to say pattern mutes. So the pattern mutes are purple and the global mutes are red. So for now, I'm just going to be standing on the pattern mutes. Now, when you're standing in this mode, this is going to be purple. So if I play it, it's the track number 1 and the track number 2 blinks because they have information. If I tap this, it's going to mute it. And if I tap this, it's going to mute it. So both tracks are still playing, still have something, but they are muted. That's the point. That's how you do it. And if you want to unmute, you just tap them and you go back. Now, if I standing right here, you can get out of whatever state that you have right here. And again, you're going to be able to change the tracks. But notice that maybe the camera is not so generous. They're still purple, right? So you will need to go to Funk and enter to the pattern mute so you can unmute them. Now, I'm going to do the same, but I'm going to be going to the, let me go here. I'm going to go to the global mutes. Now, the global mutes are red. Now, if I tap this and I tap this, it's muted. So what's the difference between pattern and global mutes? Because right now we can do the same. Now the difference is that I'm going to unmute it. If I go to the pattern mute, let me just get out. There we go. I'm standing in pattern mutes. I'm going to be muting this and muting this. Now if I change patterns, we can hear the track number 1. It's not muted. And if I go to the pattern number 1, we can hear the track number 1. The pattern number 1, we can hear that the track number 1 and the track number 2 is muted. So the pattern mutes, they work in a pattern level. If we are standing in a pattern, it's just going to mute that pattern. The global mutes, and for now I'm just going to unmute everything. I'm going to go to global again. I'm going to go to global mutes, and I'm going to be muting the track number 1 and the track number 2. Now, if I go to pattern and I go to the pattern number 2, we get playback, but it's playing the sequence, but we get nothing because the track number 1 and the track number 2 are muted. And this is why you will get global mutes. Is muting globally on the whole synthesizer whatever track that you muted. So if you change patterns and the track number 1 or the 2 in this case are muted, it doesn't care. It's just they're going to stay muted. And the pattern mutes will only mute the tracks on that pattern. That's the main difference. Now, all of this is really useful, again, if you're doing, maybe you save the state and you want to keep the pattern muted. Well, maybe you want to save it as a pattern mute, but maybe you're using the synthesizer to create a performance and you want to switch or jump between different sections, and maybe you want to keep the track number 2 muted, for example. Well, in that case, the global mutes are going to be really useful because it's going to keep the tracks muted throughout the whole performance. And then whenever you want it, you just can enable them back, and wherever you go, they're going to be, back. All right, so we are almost getting to the final part of this guide. It was really long, and there are still a lot of things that I didn't cover. We need to talk about the effects and the mixer, and this is just going to be very simple. Just going to give you a quick demonstration. So right here below the syn and the filter and then the amp, you have the secondary functions, which is going to be the chorus, the delay, and the reverb, right? So I'm going to be playing this back, and maybe I'm going to be going to getting off of the mutes. I'm going to stay on the track number 2 and delete this. I'm just going to keep the track number 1. So as we know, when we go to the amp and the second page, we have the global, delay, and then the reverb, right? So we can do it from there. Now I'm going to be going down all this, and I'm going to be going up in chorus. Now if I go to syn right here to function in the chorus, of course, you have the configuration options for the course. Now, the first one is going to be the depth, right? Then you have the speed of the course, depending on what you want to do. You have a high pass frequency, so you can chop the lows. If I go to the other side, you don't have a high pass. And then you have the width. You can just make it super width on narrow. Now, right now I'm doing this video and I'm monitoring with a new system, and it's not giving me the left and the right. Everything is mono, but maybe you're getting it. So let me know down in the comments. Now, then you have the del, and of course you have the volume of this mix of this course, and then you have the delay and the reverb. Now, this is not the delay and the reverb. This is how much of the course is going to be sent to the delay, and how much is going to be sent to the reverb. That's why it's delay sent and then reverb sent, right? So maybe you're going to be getting this right. It sounds a little bit weird on my headphones. I'm going to be going to the next option, which is going to be the delay. Now, right here, again, the options are super simple, and maybe I'm going to stop it and just use the keyboard. I'm going to go all the way down this, all the way down this, and I'm going to be going up on the delay. So if I do a function and then delay, you have a bunch of options, and they are just very simple options. You get the time. The time will adjust the... Maybe going to go up in volume. Just going to adjust the time of the delay. Pretty simple. Now the X is going to be a ping pong. Right now it's going to be off. If I turn it on, it's ping pong. I cannot hear it because I'm getting mono on my monitoring system, which is weird. Then what you get is going to be the width, and it's going to say stereo width, which is again something I'm not going to get. If you go all the way up, it's going to be wider. And if you go down, you're kind of making it mono. So you can think of this and notice it. And again, with function and just toggling this, moving this around, you can use this as a stereo spread, pretty much. And then you have your feedback, classic control. And on this delay, what you get is a more analog type of delay. If you go really up, it's going to go crazy, right? So you need to really control it. And then at the bottom, of course, you get the volume, and then you get the reverb sent. Same thing we get on the chorus, and you have a filter. So you can filter the low frequencies, because we get almost nothing. And you get the other side, which is going to be high passing, which is rolling off the higher frequencies. I'm going to go to function and then go to reverb. And as you could guess, we get the most common options. You get the pre-delay for the reverb. You get your decay for the reverb. And on this side, you get a shelving type of EQ. So this, what it will do, it will dampen the reverb. If you go all the way up on this one, you're not going to be doing anything. And right here, you select the frequency where you want to chop and, chop the frequencies, the high frequencies. So this is going to make the delay, the reverb sound a little bit darker. Now, right here, you have your volume, of course, and then you have the same thing that you have on your delay. You can chop the highs and you can chop the lows. And again, I'm going really fast because all this is just pretty simple. And I guess this video at this point, it's around the 3 hours, maybe a little bit less. So I don't want to upload videos that last 3 hours. Now, if I go out, maybe to whatever, and I do function, what you get right here on the LFO section is a master control. So if I go to master, at the top, notice it says internal mixer 1 of 3. So right here, what you can do, you have a master overdrive, which is super cool, right? Yeah. But also, you can control the loudness of all the different tracks. And if you think about this, you have a loudness control right here of the whatever track where you're standing. You have a gain control on the amp, and now you have it right here. So you have different gain stages, which is super cool. Now, if you keep tapping, this is going to take you to the second page. And on this is where you control the external ins, right? And if you tap it again, the third page is going to be the external in for the left or the right. In this case, it says in R. I'm going to tap it again, and the other one is in left. So right here, you're going to be controlling, let me stop it. Right here, what you can control is when you plug in something in the input of the left, and the right is going to go through here. So you need to go to the mixer to manage the gain, to see if you want to send something of the effects, the panning, and everything else. Now, there's one more option. Right here, it says dual. So by default, when we do function and master, we can change the in of the right, which is going to be this one, or we can manage the in of the left, which is going to be this one. But we do it independently. But if you go to level data and you switch it, it's going to be one single screen. It's going to be dual mono and then off. So now if we tap it, notice that we have two screens. We don't have three screens anymore. It's going to say in, left, and right. So you're handling both inputs on one single place, right? Okay, so almost the last thing we're going to discuss on this video is going to be the voices. Now, this device has 8 voices in total, so you need to manage them well. Right, so the menu of this is going to be right here, and that's why, it says voices. At the bottom it says Unison. I'm going to tell you why in a minute. So if I go right here, it will tell you what you can do. All right, so let's go over this. So the first option is going to be the locked voices. So what you can do, since you have 4 different tracks, you can lock each track to a very specific amount of voices. If it says D, it means dynamic. So the synthesizer is going to handle the voices, for you. So, okay. So what we can do, if I'm standing on the track 1, 2, 3, or 4, notice it's changing right here, you can change the amount of voices that this one will use. If I say 1 voice, notice that the remaining, it's going to be 7. If I do 3 voices, the remaining voices is going to be 1. And I'm standing on the track 2. So if I do 1 voice, 2 voices, 3 voices, we are reaching max. If I do 4, it's not going to work. It's doing it, but what it's doing is voice stealing. And we're going to talk about that in a minute. So again, you have the ability to lock the tracks to, a certain amount of voices. If I go to the track number 2, on this one, it's dynamic, and then it's 5, which is, what we have available. But you can lock it to different amount of voices. All right, so if I do a chord, play this, we get a triad, I'm blocking it to 3 different voices. If I play a key, it's going to steal one of the voices and just, make it able to play that number 7 I'm playing right here. Now, how it's doing it is going to be right here at the top, and you have 4 different ways. You have the cycle, the track, the low, and the high, and you can change them with the arrows right here. Now, cycle means that it will steal the first voice that you used. So if I play the 9, the 3, the 13, and I play the 7, of course, I'm out of voices. So this one, what will do, it will steal the first key I played, which is going to be the number 3. I'm sorry, the number 9. If I remove the finger, notice that it's just, you're getting the same sound. Right? If I release it, it's the same sound. Now, this is the first one I'm playing, then this, then this, then this, is stealing this one, the number 3. That's what cycle means, is going to steal the first key that you played. Now, track, it's a little bit different from, what we are doing right now. It's going to be with the different tracks that you have right here. So, for example, the track number 1 has a priority over the number 2, the 3, and the 4. So if you're doing many voices on the number 1 and you're out of voices because you're using the 2, the 3, and the 4, it's going to steal the voices from the other tracks. Now, if I'm using the track number 2, the track number 2 will steal voices over the 3 and the 4, and the same thing, the 3 is going to steal from the 4. So this is how the track works. Then you have the low. So this one will steal the lowest key. So if I play this, this, and this, and I play this, it's going to stay the low. It's going to steal the lowest key, which is going to be that one, right? 1, 2, 3, play. It's stealing that one. Right. Now, if I go to the last one, it's going to steal the highest. So 1, 2, 3. This is the highest. If I play it, it's stealing that one. Notice I release it and we get no change. Right? So again, you have different options in how to steal voices. All right, so I'm going to go to the D, the dynamic 8. So if I play keys, notice that right there at the top, you have the 8 voices. And when I play it, it's not reusing the same voice. It's just using different voices. Same thing if I do a chord. It's not the same voice every time. So if you want to reuse the same voice every single time, you just toggle this on and it's going to be reusing the same voice even if you do a chord. That's what the reuse means. Coming right up is going to be the layer. So you can have different tracks play at the same time. This is actually super cool. And the layer is going to be this one. So if the first one is highlighted, it means that you're not going to do anything. Now, if I move on, notice that it's just selecting different layers. And all of this is talking about the tracks that we have right here. So if I do maybe this, is going to be the 1 and the 2. So whatever I play, or whatever the track number 1 plays, is going to be played on the track number 2. We are layer them. So if I play this here, notice it sounds louder. It is because it's triggering the number 1, the track number 1, and the number 2. If I go to the number 2 and make something just to, to separate it from the track number 1, and I go back to the voices, notice that now we get it. I'm standing on the track number 2. I'm going to stand on the track number 1, and notice that we still get it. We are triggering with the same keyboard, with the same sequence, the track number 2 and the track number 1, both. Now, you have different combinations, 1 and 2. You can do 1 and 3, and then so on, and so on, and so on. And this is, it's a useful feature because with one sequencer, you can, or maybe one track, you can trigger all the other tracks and do the same, but the other tracks might have different sounds. So you can create a very, powerful sound. And the last thing, it's going to be the unison. I'm maybe going to stand right here, and I'm going to be adding a little bit of grid, a little bit of harmonics, because right now it's pretty dull, maybe not that much, something like that. So when you go to voices, you have the unison. By default, it's off. So if you turn it on, you can decide how many voices you can use. And of course, you have up to 8. If you use 8 voices, you're just pretty much using all the voices. All right? So in this case, I'm gonna use maybe 4 and go down in volume because it's just gonna get a little bit too loud. So now we are doing unison. Of course, this one is gonna be the unison spread. And at this point, I guess this is pretty simple for you. And you can go all the way crazy, all the way up. Or, maybe go to something a little bit more, I want to say usable. Just adjust to taste. So every time you play a key, since this is unison, you are using 4 voices. So you need to be careful with this because you only have 8 voices. You don't have more. But maybe using 2 voices or maybe even 3 is going to be a little bit better because you can use the other tracks. If not, you're pretty much done. And if you do a chord, is 2 notes, we have only 2 available. So maybe a good idea is going to be using 2 voices, 2 and then 2. Right? So again, all of this is just a decision that you need to make. It's completely up to you. One more thing, I'm going to get out of this and I'm going to disable the unison. We just get that. I'm going to get out. Now, again, you have a lot of options on this setup. I'm going to be talking about this in a different video. If you go at the bottom, you're going to see something that says play mode. It's, of course, function and trigger. And the play mode lets you select between poly and this track. And if I change it, it's going to be changing it to different modes. Poly with the mono LFO. And then you can use mono. So you can make a track mono. Now, when you do this, and this is why I'm telling you this, when you go to the voices, the tracks that are mono on the setup are going to be with a dot right there at the top. And of course, if you have a dot, it means that you are locked to one single voice. So I'm going to go back to this setup and changing this to poly, right? I'm going to get out, and then I'm going to go back right here. So what if I want to use some unison, just like this, right? So we can hear it. I'm going to get out. Now, this one is going to be enabled, right? Maybe you don't see it because of, the lighting and the camera is green. It's on. So this means that the unison, it's on. So if I play it, of course, we get it. Now, if you do function and tap it very quickly, it's going to go off. off, it means that Unison is off. And you function, tap it, Unison, it's on. All right, hopefully you liked all of this. You learned something new on this video. And remember to like and subscribe. And if you have the money and you want to buy me a coffee just to say thanks, you can go to the links at the description, or you have the links on the screen. You have the PayPal, you have Patreon, and you have YouTube Thanks if that's your thing. Thanks for watching, and see you on the next one.